Are you interested in learning 3D animation but maybe don't know where to start? Hi, I'm Crash and I've been animating for almost 10 years now in software like Blender, Source Filmmaker, and Maya. In this video, we're going to talk about the best 3D animation software to use as a beginner, why now is the best time to start learning 3D animation, if college or a degree is required to become a professional 3D animator, and a lot more. So let's jump into it. So, what is 3D animation? In short, 3D animation is the process of creating computer animations to make moving images for film or to bring real-time software like video games to life. This is done using 3D software like Blender, Maya, 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, etc. You can broadly put 3D animation into two different categories: motion capture animation and what is called hand-keyed animation. Motion capture animation uses real-life motion data captured from humans or animals that are then transferred onto 3D characters. You'll often see this type of performance capture animation used in realistic video games like God of War or Horizon Zero Dawn, in films like Avatar or Alita Battle Angel, and more. However, this motion capture data usually needs to be cleaned up by a 3D animator after it's captured manually. In fact, there are people whose entire job is cleaning up motion capture animation data. Then there's my personal favorite kind of 3D animation, which is hand-keyed animation. This type of animation involves manually placing what are called keyframes onto your character by posing them in 3D space using a timeline to create motion. If that sounds a little confusing, we're going to cover that in later videos in depth, so don't worry. Hand-keyed animation is particularly popular for cartoony or anime-style 3D animations due to the level of control and stylization of motion it allows for. This is what Pixar uses and 3D animated series like Arcane or Trigun Stampede use. It's also used in video games like Breath of the Wild and Hi-Fi Rush, and films such as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Both animation approaches have their own upsides and downsides though. When it comes to hand-keyed animation, it can take a tremendous amount of time to make, and many professional animators who hand-key their animations at studios like Epic Games or Pixar are only creating 3 to 6 seconds of animation a day. That's a rough oversimplification, but that's basically sums it up. I've spent hours on animations that only ended up being a few seconds long using this approach. And as for motion capture, while it can usually create animation data much faster than hand-keying, it can also look lifeless and stiff.
He's got those polar express eyes.
Particularly when it has not manually been cleaned up by an experienced 3D animator. However, in my opinion, you only need to worry about learning hand-keyed animation as a beginner. That's because it really just allows you to understand and master the fundamentals of animation faster, and you can always learn how to clean up motion capture later, so starting with hand-keyed just makes the most sense. But one of the most common questions regarding learning 3D animation I've seen online is something along the lines of, do I need to go to school to learn 3D animation? Or maybe an animation school like Animation Mentor or Anim School? The short answer is no. You absolutely do not need to go to school to learn 3D animation. In fact, many professional 3D animators have not gone to art school or college at all. As I'm sure you know, the cost of going to college can be insane. We're talking upwards of 50 grand to get a degree, and often you're going to hear animators say that the tutorials they found online related to animation were better and more useful than what they were taught in college. Now, I'm not here to say that college is a bad thing. On the contrary, I studied animation for over 2 years at a technical college and got an Associate of Arts degree in animation. I made some really good friends there, including my teachers, who had decades of valuable industry experience, and having them as mentors really helped improve my skills a lot. But you have to realize 3 important things when it comes to art school. The first is that no matter if you're self-taught or you're going to an art school, it's going to be a lot of work either way. And you need to know that there isn't a single thing college or university can teach you about animation that isn't already available online or in a book somewhere. The school is simply giving you the structure for the information that is already out there. And finally, know that the degree you get after graduating is practically useless in this industry.
Might as well throw these in the fire.
In the animation industry, most employers simply do not care about your degree because, for them, there is one thing that matters most when hiring an animator. Are they skilled and a good fit for the role? Ultimately, to an employer, they really just care about how good at animating you are. Obviously, soft skills matter too, but that's another video. But for us, that's fantastic news because that means all we need to focus on in our animation journey is getting better at animation. Particularly the 12 principles of animation. We're going to cover those in a later video. But ultimately, just like any other art form, you should prepare yourself for a lot of work being ahead of you. At first, 3D animation isn't super easy to learn. You're going to need to be patient and consistent to slowly start creating stuff that looks good. But just like many other art forms, once you start getting over that hump, which may happen faster than you think, by the way, it becomes incredibly addicting and one of the most satisfying art forms ever, if you ask me. You'll also need to consider which 3D animation software to use, and as a beginner, there can be an overwhelming number of options to pick from. Luckily though, most 3D animation software functions largely the same way, meaning you can basically learn one piece of animation software, and most of the skills you'll pick up are transferable to the other pieces of animation software, particularly if you're learning the 12 fundamental principles of animation, which I will stress over and over again because they're just so important. As a beginner though, the software I recommend you start with is Blender. I already have an entire video explaining why this is the case in depth on my channel already, but the short version of that video is that Blender is completely free, it's open source, it's been used in many professional feature films, visual effects, and animation projects already, it's battle tested, it works, and there's a massive community for Blender online. You're going to find a Blender tutorial for virtually anything here on YouTube. And Blender continues to improve every single day with really exciting improvements planned for future releases. I've used many pieces of software to animate in the past, even expensive ones like Maya, yet I still primarily use Blender for all my animations. It's just kind of fun to be in. And one of my biggest goals with this channel is to teach you how to create your own 3D animations in Blender completely for free. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of those. So, in summary, there has never been a better time to start learning 3D animation. You don't need to go to an art school, and amazing animation resources are all over YouTube, with excellent new videos and tutorials popping up all the time. And in fact, my mission with this channel is to bring you excellent high-quality resources on learning 3D animation for free. So be sure to check out my Patreon to support my ability to make more content like this in the future, plus get access to exciting exclusive rewards that are popping up there all the time. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, start animating, and have a lovely day.